What's up? This is Rob Will, and you're listening to the Blazers Balcony with Brooke, Olzendam, and Casey Holdahl.
Greetings, Blazer fans, and welcome to the Blazers Balcony, episode 141 of the Blazers Balcony, presented by our friends at Spirit Mountain Casino. I am your co-host, Casey Holdahl.
How dare you?
You should. Your response to that should be like, excuse me?
Excuse me, what? Excuse me, what? No, it doesn't bother me.
Excuse me? Yeah, your co-host, Casey Holdahl, with my co-host and friend, Brooke Olzendam, who's in mid-preparation for an event tonight. So, Brooke taking the time out of her day when she already has to work later on tonight, a person that doesn't get many nights off as it is, to record this podcast after I had to postpone it a couple hours because my tire blew out when I was going to practice today. Brooke Olzendam, how's it going?
Well, better than you. I felt terrible about your day.
Oh, it's okay. I don't know if they're sponsors anymore, but shout out to Les Schwab, man. Mm-hmm. They're always making it happen over there. I don't think I've ever not bought tires from Les Schwab, and you understand why. My tire blew out. It was completely flat. Took it in. They gave me a new one for free. They're like, hey, we'll do your alignment. That'll cost money. I was like, yeah, go ahead and do my alignment. They do the alignment. They're like, actually, you don't need an alignment. Here's your keys back. You don't owe us anything.
That is sweet. And like I said to you, we were talking about this before we started the podcast. And because of that, when something really goes wrong with your car, you will think, oh, I should go to It's good business. Yeah. It's just good business. No, I'm doing great. Tonight is Thank You RCU. It's at OMSI, which is kind of fun and different. I've done every single year. I think they've mostly been at Moda, so maybe a couple other places. But the first time I can recall it being at OMSI, and I haven't been to OMSI for a long time, so yeah, I'm kind of excited about it.
Yeah, no, any time is, so for me, it's like OMSI is one of those places where it's like, if there's something at OMSI, it's like, yeah, I'll go to that.
Mm-hmm,
like,
totally.
If it's at the zoo, yeah, I'll go to that. Like there are certain places where I'm like, yeah, okay, great, I'll happily go.
Yeah. Speaking of, I went to Zoo Lights on New Year's Eve.
Oh,
I don't know if
fantastic.
I told you that. Yeah, it was a little chilly, obviously, you know me, but it was great. It was really cool, beautiful. It was lovely, and I was so glad that they were still doing it because I wasn't sure if it ended on New Year's. But anyways, I think it went on. It might still be going on. I don't know, but if you can still go, highly recommend it. And I think the last time I was at OMSI, it was a couple summers ago, and went into the submarine. Mm-hmm. That was so cool.
I have never done the submarine.
Oh, you have to.
I've lived in Oregon almost my entire life. They've had that in submarine, I think going back to the old OMSI site, and I've never done the submarine. So one of these days I'll have to do this.
You got to do it. And the guy, I don't know if it's the same one that gives you tours or maybe there's rotating, but he had been on it. Like he has a history with submarines. And so he would, like everything that he was explaining, like he'd gone through it. Like, this is where I sleep. This is where I would make, dinner. This is where blah, blah, blah. And so it was super interesting, and I would highly recommend it. I'll go back.
Well, and that's interesting too, because I'm a big submarine guy. Mm-hmm. Like, I like to watch movies about submarines, and I just watched Das Boot last night. So,
Das Boot?
Yeah, Das Boot. It's a famous World War II submarine movie. It's in German. Obviously, it's about the German side of it and the U-boats. And, it's like 3.5 hours long.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. So, like, I was sitting and, like, I've wanted to watch it for a while because it's, like, basically the last submarine movie that I haven't watched because you have to, it's not, like, available streaming anywhere. So I've rented it on Amazon. Mm-hmm. Which, for me, it's like, anytime someone asks me to spend like $2 on something, I'm like, oh, no, I'm not doing that. Yeah. Like, there's no way. Like, and so it's always some of these other like subscription sites that people use. I'm always like, you pay for that? Mm-hmm. Like, but you can get, it's free on the internet, right? Like, so I finally broke down to watch it because since it's in German, you obviously have to have the subtitles. I refuse to watch dubbed movies, and it's harder to find subtitled movies in like random like streaming sites. So, I just broke down and actually paid for it, and it's quite good.
Was it? Yeah. I can think of more exciting ways to spend a night, but I'm happy for you. A Das Boot, 3.5 hours and subtitles.
Yeah, it was a long day, so I was like, yeah, I'm gonna unwind here by watching.
I love that helped you unwind.
Yeah,
that's my favorite.
It was good. And like I wanted to just like sit on the couch and not
I get
do anything. The one thing I will say though, like sometimes, we just kind of want to watch something, kind of zone out, which is kind of where I was at.
It was me and Bravo.
It's hard when it's subtitled because you got to read. Like, you got to pay attention. Exactly.
You can't go in the kitchen and grab something.
I'll just zonk out here for a minute and then wake back up, and I'll be like, oh no, my German is not of a level to where I can just sleep and understand what they're talking about. So
that's so funny. Well, I went bowling last night, with my cousin Ben, who I've talked about a couple of times on the pod. He and his wife, they're both doctors. They live in Happy Valley. They have the cutest kids in the world. And they asked us after Theo's game, do you want to come to Kingpins? And I'm like, sure. Where is it? And happened to be right next to it. Just everything worked out perfectly. I got to tell you, so she had to get a reservation yesterday for this. Apparently, I did not realize this, when the weather gets like this, those bowling alleys are absolutely packed, and they are really, really good bowlers, like really good.
I have one of my unverifiable theories is the lack of bowling alleys now has led to further downstream issues in society in general. When you could just go to a bowling alley and could just bowl, we were a proper country. Now you're exactly right. Like when you want to bowl now, you got to make reservations. You got to go to some place where it's all neon lights and like it's like half a bowling alley, half arcade, half a fake restaurant. Like no, I want to go to the place on Interstate that's now closed. It's now a condo. That a friend of mine lives at, used to be a bowling alley. And that bowling alley was great. You get Budweiser pitchers for like $2. It was dank. Like you just went there to bowl, which is great. And like now you can't just and so you talk about people being good bowlers. Like now you got to fight the league folks, which was always an issue anyways with bowling alleys. But now that there's fewer of them, and again, then now that they're all like these like Chuck E. Cheese-esque places, it's like, no, like give me the old school bowling alley and give me a lot of them. Again, like I can think of 4 bowling alleys that have closed in Portland since I lived here.
Yeah.
And I used to go to all those bowling alleys on a semi-regular basis, either to drink cheap beer or to bowl or to do both. And so the fact that those don't exist anymore is a real shame, particularly up to and including the one on Powell Lanes used to be great. Then they turned it into a Target, and I think they even closed that Target down now.
Oh, jeez.
Bring back Powell Lanes. Bring back the bowling alley that is where the Trader Joe's is at in Hollywood. Bring them all back.
I will tell you, if there is one I can think of that is still like that, it's right down the street. It's Tiger Bowl. Okay. And
so in the suburbs, you probably stiof have a few like that.
Oh, yeah.
God,
you walk in, you can get a bowling alley whenever. Actually, my dad and I did a couple weeks ago, just went after school. There was nobody there. A few of them. And pizza and beer, that's it. And it's been
pizza, beer, stale cigarette smoke.
Yep,
like
exactly.
That is what I want in a bowling. And again, you can get lanes. You can go with your friends. You can bowl. I love bowling. I think it's great. It's a great way to hang out. And
but to my point, about how good bowlers are, there was a couple to our right who had all their own ball, their own like those wrist things. I mean, they were amazing. And then there's this kid. There's a family to my left. There's like 12-year-old kid who did it like old school, where he holds the ball with barely. And he was amazing. Like he would make it go all. I mean, like really good bowler, make it look like it's going to go into the.
To the gutter.
Gutter, thank you. And then it turns and it strike after strike. And so he and I happened to be in the rotation that every time he went, I went. So after a while, I was like, bro, you got to tell, how are you so good at this? He's like, my family's all big bowlers. We do it all the time. And I go, and you're holding it? Like, he's like, that's how I do it. His name was Isaac. And shout out to Isaac. He had a really cool Hawaiian shirt on. He was just an awesome kid. And so I was like, can you just go before? Like, you go first. I don't want to go at the same time you do.
So if you are observing good bowling etiquette, Brooke, and if you are in the lane next to someone, you should not be throwing at the same time.
Well, I didn't. I mean, we just were up at the round the same
right.
time.
Yeah.
I'm not smart enough to not know that.
So when you are in bowling links as a young person, they teach you the bowling etiquette, which is you're supposed to wait for the. I mean, like
that would be like yelling at someone when they're hitting a golf ball.
Kinda,
I know that too.
Yeah. Though I mean, you're kind of, if you're both in sync together, I could see it not necessarily like it bothering you, but that is one of the bowling etiquette.
Well, you'd be proud of me because I just
that's
taught
very
myself
smart
that.
Of you, Brooke. Yeah, and because people that throw like that too, particularly on like public open lanes, you do really well, because what ends up happening is the wax on the lane as the day goes on, it kind of sinks into the middle. And so you get a lot. So like if you are someone that's throwing the ball with more spin, once you get to that end rail, like the wax is actually built up on that rail, so it kind of pushes you back down into the center of the pins.
Goodness, I did not know that.
If you throw like that, anyways, you're already ahead of the game. And then if you're doing it on a public lane where again the wax isn't like as like well kept, you're gonna be able to throw some good balls. Well, so shout out to Isaac.
Oh man, he was a stud. So that was kind of fun. And we were bantering back and forth in a fun way. Not like, knock it off, Isaac. I was like, I'm just, he was amazing. Like, I was like, this is incredible. So yeah, that was another fun way to spend a night when it's not so great outside. Yeah. And yeah, I highly recommend it. I mean, even though I understand your point about you like the old school ones, totally get it.
Hey, those, I'm glad they exist. Mm-hmm. Like, they're just not, for me, they're not as cool as the older ones because I'm also a childless adult. So like the kind of the things that you throw out there for the kids. And even though I love playing video games, but like when I'm bowling, like I want to bowl and again, maybe smoke a cigarette or two and drink cheap beer and hopefully win. And I'm also a decent bowler too, or at least I can
see you being a decent bowler. I'm surprised we haven't bowled on the road at some point. We should.
We should at some time, because bowling would be a good on the road event. Like pickleball is my on the road event now, but like I think bowling would be more fun.
And you already have your pickleball partners, so
but I'm on the outside looking in. Like I had my paddles the entire time on this last trip. Didn't play once because there was actually really no place to play. Mm-hmm. There were some outdoor places in Birmingham, but one, it's Detroit suburbs, so they take the nets down. And two, like they're militant about like, if you don't live here, you can't use our courts.
I feel like that's everywhere. That was in LA too, wasn't it?
So Phoenix, like it wasn't in LA. In Phoenix, I tried to go to a court, but it was like inside a development and they just didn't want to let me inside the development, which, understandable. This is probably not that interesting to folks. We can talk about basketball here instead of other more frivolous sports.
It was on the road talk.
It was on the road talk. You're exactly right. And so there is someone else who does play pickleball who travels, who she had mentioned. She's like, hey, I heard you play. Like next time you're playing on the road, let's try to play. And I have high hopes for Miami. I figure like Miami has to have courts.
Absolutely.
Particularly where we stay at. Like I'm actually going to call ahead and be like, hey, what's your pickleball situation? And also I'm going to be like, hey, we are staying there and, do spend a lot of money there. So if you guys could get me in touch with the court, I would really appreciate it.
Yeah, plan ahead.
So, yeah, exactly. Got to plan ahead. Your Portland Trailblazers are going to be home for a minute here. So plenty of chance to play pickleball here in town, which I will be doing on Wednesday, actually, by the way. See me at People's Court on Wednesday night.
People's Court.
Trailblazers started out a 5-game homestand with a 119-98 loss to the Miami Heat and a pretty good game for the Trailblazers. And I feel like that's kind of been the gist of the last 2 weeks for the Trailblazers is like not winning maybe as much as you would hope or games that you feel like they do have a chance to win, but playing some pretty good basketball, which I think for a lot of people is kind of the best of both worlds. It's like, I want to keep ourselves in the sweepstakes for the first pick in the draft, but I would also like to see the team improve and play some good basketball. So if you're one of those people, I think what you've been seeing out of this team lately is good. Yeah. Like again, like that Miami game, they got it down to I think 5 with like 4 minutes to play. They got themselves into a hole, which is kind of the one thing this team, not the one thing, it's one of the main things though this team can't do is that. It's just too hard for this team, where they're at in their development to be able to like get out of 20-point holes.
Like Coach always says, they don't have the margin of error.
Exactly.
Margin of error.
And so, in that Heat game, they did it twice. Like they got down early, they rallied back,
the Heat
got down again.
3. Well,
I got to hand it to them. Like, every time it looked like the Blazers were like making a run, it's like Tyler Hero and Bam would like score like 8 points in a row.
I know.
And I wouldn't say they were toying with the Blazers, but there was a little bit of a like, are you guys just flipping the switch right now? Because, I don't know if you guys are good enough to do that, but it kind of seems like that's what you're doing right now. So, shout out to them. I mean, they played a really good game, but I thought the Blazers played a pretty good game as well. And again, I would say the same for the Mavericks game. I think, all things being equal, Blazers win that game. I don't think everything was equal in that game, so it went the way it went. But, I feel like they had a chance in that one. Obviously, they bested the Pelicans. That Pelicans team is, they got problems. And then, they probably should have, or at least very could have won the game versus Detroit. So, you're talking, and then, you beat Milwaukee and you had a chance versus the Lakers too on the road. So like,
could have been, I mean, I'm not trying to get ahead of myself, but could have been 5-0 on that road trip. Truly, it was a possibility.
Yeah.
So I thought they played great on the road. I think you and I, chat with Chauncey after every game and, we talked about have you felt so far about the road trip, and he was pleased. He's like, we've been playing hard. We've been competitive, and that's all I can ask of these guys is to, again, try not to get into holes, but for the most part, compete. And every single game, at least a couple times, it felt as though it could have gone the Blazers' way. I felt that way. So 2-3, not bad on the road, but easily could have been 4-1, 5-0 if things had gone their way. But yeah, I think you're right. That's all our fans want. That's what they want to enjoy watching. They like hustle. They like energy. They like guys giving it their all. They like, Deni hustle play, Toumani hustle play. They just like watching guys really put all the effort and energy into it. And I feel like that's what they did all road trip. And I will say that the final score of the game against Miami didn't really feel like that was the story of the game.
I'm not a it was a closer game than it looked kind of guy. That felt to me like a closer game than a 22-point game. Yeah. And, I think around 4 minutes left, they kind of white flagged it. But
I would say too, in that game, it was exciting. Donovan, playing got to start again. He's back, and we obviously did not play a game on the road. There was a game he didn't play on the road, and then he came back and was great. And in the start, I thought he was excellent, double. And they went to him, early and often. I just love the way he crashes the boards. That's something I talked to him about. He was actually ended up being our interview, but I was so bummed because I am interviewing him in the hallway, right? That's about the same time you guys are interviewing Coach Phillips at the press conference. So I don't know what's being said there because I'm in the midst of an interview. And so I didn't know he was starting. I don't even know if you knew he was starting yet. So as soon as it was over, I was like, oh, he's starting. I was like, gosh, dang it. Like the timing of it, not that it would have completely changed the interview, like made it like night and day, but that would be something I would normally ask had I known he was starting. But anyways, got the start. It was great. And saw some other guys in the rotation because, some guys that didn't foresee being out were out.
Both Deandre and Robert Williams did not play in that game. Sounds like Deandre will be back for the game versus the Nets. Robert, I think, is probably a little more unlikely.
What about Jeremy?
Jeremy, according to Chauncey Billups at practice on, what's today? Monday, said that, Jeremy was on the court. He is doing more stuff. I'd be a bit surprised if he played versus the Nets on Tuesday, but I think after that, I think it's probably, I think sometime on this homestand is probably likely for Jeremy. And it also sounds like DA will probably be available. Rob probably not, at least for the next game. And it sounds like Matisse, they did give another update. It sounds like another couple weeks on that one. So I'm guessing this homestand is probably maybe not out of the question, but maybe a little bit unlikely. But on this next road trip, which starts about a week from now, that's Miami, Orlando, Charlotte. I think there's a chance there as well. So
I will shed a tear when Matisse comes back in place. I will be a tear of joy. Like just we're around him all the time, at home and on the road, and he's just someone that we like to converse with. Smart guy, very personable, just a delight. And so I'm just used to him. It's almost like he's part of our gang.
I know, and he let me tell you, he's sick of it.
I know. He doesn't want to be part of our gang.
No, he do not. And the more and more like. Matisse, I think is like, can I just play some GD basketball already? So when we were having practice in New Orleans at Tulane, he wasn't practicing, and so he was just wearing his regular clothes. And Matisse actually, a lot of guys just kind of put on sweats and it's understandable. We're not doing it, and also like athletes, if they can wear sweats someplace, 9 times out of 10 they're wearing sweats.
100.
But Matisse was actually dressed like,
Oh yeah, almost seersucker pants.
Yeah. So like he was wearing, and I even told him, I was like, Matisse, you look like you could be a graduate teaching assistant at Tulane. And he was like, oh really? I was like, yeah, you look good. He's like, yeah. And then he made some comment about like, I'd probably be doing more as a graduate teaching assistant than the basketball I've been playing as of late because I haven't played in this entire season. I don't remember exactly how he said it. And probably that. But it was more like, yeah, at least I'd be doing something at that point. Buddy. So I know that Matisse is jonesing to get out there as well. And, just so people know, like he was very close to being back. And then, he had an injury. And again, I think it happened on that Houston back-to-back on that trip that I wasn't on, but I had heard that it was like, hey, Matisse got injured and I think it was semi-serious too. I mean, serious for a rehabilitation injury. Sure. And so it's not like they're like, yeah, we're just sitting him. He was close. And then something happened and now he's had to work his way back again, which I imagine is also probably like really makes it feel like you're bummed out because it's like, I was really close to coming back. I've been working hard. and then I can't, and now I got to wait another month to be able to play. So hopefully in the not too distant future for Matisse.
Well, I remember, telling you, I think I texted you. I was like, oh man, I'm sure you heard from other people, but I thought it was you.
I didn't want to put you out there, but
we talk about everything, and I was like, I was just like that. I was because I was so unfortunate. I was so unfortunate. I was like, no, not Matisse, and then I didn't say anything to him right away. I mean, I'm like, you could just see in his face how like down he was and frustrated for obvious reasons. But I think I waited to the next day or a couple days, and I went up to him. He was in the hallway outside the locker room, and I just went up. I'm like, I'm so sorry, man. What a bummer. I didn't want to say anything to you right away. Just letting it sit. But just to your point that he really wants to come back, and it was just, darn it,
No, that's a tough one.
But when I said I liked his outfit at Tulane, he's like, well, I'm running out of clothes. I'm like, well, you saved the best for last. Yeah. That's a great outfit.
Well, and also, Matisse, you run out of clothes like you wear the same thing. And I actually put that on Twitter one time, and because I didn't think Matisse actually read Twitter. The next day, he's like, I actually do have a lot of different clothes, actually. And like,
what did you tweet? I don't remember.
I think it was like, so Nate Jones, who, works for Matisse's agent. Mm-hmm. I can't even remember what it was, but it was something to the effect of like, Matisse always looks great, but he basically wears like the same.
It's the same style.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Which
short pants.
I'm kind of the same way.
Yeah, you
like
wear short
you
pants
find
too.
something you like and you kind of stick with it, and you take different derivations of it. But generally, it's like, no, this works for me. It works for my body. Like I'm thinking when you're on the road too, it's like I want something that like it's going to be useful everywhere, and that I'm going to be able to look good and also be able to change things in and out without having to worry so much about like whether or not I am wearing dirty clothes or not. So, and I say that as someone who on this last road trip, my bag was packed all the way full, so much so that my travel fan got broken in transit.
Oh no, not your travel fan.
So like I had to raw dog it with the fan app on my phone, which worked okay. I will say too that like definitely some psychosomatic stuff going on in that. When I would use the fan app on my phone, like I felt like I could feel like a breeze on my arm a little bit, and I was like, "Oh, okay, this
well,
works."
Now you know, like if you're in a pickle. By the way, on that same note, I have to give a shout out to Tyra because I forgot my headphones, and I realized it the second I sat down on the plane to leave for the road trip.
Oh no!
I was like, "How am I going to do this?" Because I was thinking I was going to have to raw dog it and just talk to people.
Oh God forbid!
Or try to sleep.
We just start in Los Angeles, so I bet you could have got a pair of new headphones.
I probably could have, but I would have been annoying. It was just. I would have purchased them, and I would have been so.
I bought headphones at the Best Buy at Cascade Station, which is at the airport, on a road trip because I had forgotten my headphones, and I was like, I can't.
No, you can't. Especially those long flights.
Those long flights, yeah, you gotta.
So she was my seatmate for a couple of the flights, and I told her, I was like, no way, I can't believe I did that, and she's like, oh, do you want to borrow some of mine? I'm like, you have more than one? She's like, oh yeah, I have a whole, she's like, I'm like, really? She goes like, oh, I always travel numerous things. So she reaches in, she had like her pair, the pair she lent me, another pair. I was like, amazing. Wow. Thank you. So then she would take it and charge it and bring it to me. I was like, I can just charge it. You don't need to just like take them back and get them ready.
That's a little too eager to please for me.
No, she was being so, no, she's wonderful. She saved the trip. And I wasn't even thinking about it. I was just giving them back to her. And then every time we'd fly, she's like, no, you can use them. I'm like, well, I'm just going to keep them then. So it's not your responsibility to go charge it at night and then bring it back to me. So I kept them the last couple
I bet at that Kroger in Birmingham, you could have got a new pair of headphones, Brooke.
I did not go to the Kroger in Birmingham, but I could have. You're right.
You didn't?
No, I didn't.
I thought you went to the grocery
store.
Oh,
I did go to the Kroger. Oh, that is a Kroger. Oh my gosh. I'm an idiot. I had to go get, some aspirin. Yeah, I did. You know what? At that point, I had Tyra's.
Well, and the only reason I remember that is because I also went to that Kroger when you said you were going to, and in my head I was like, oh, maybe I'll bump into Brooke here.
Yeah, that's funny. I'm usually, because it was far away, so I had to Uber. Well, I mean, I guess some people could have walked, but knowing me,
I walked there after. Right?
Okay, so
but no, you were. I was not also your back was
yeah. So I Ubered there.
We did talk about your back the last time, Brooke. Yes. You seem like you're doing better.
I'm so much better. Oh my gosh, thank you. Yeah, it was. still like, lingering, but not even close to what it was. Like and I also, now that we're at home, I have a heating blanket on my bed, and my mom, while we were on the road, she's like, "Why you need a heating blanket for, like pad?" I'm like, "You're right, I do." Funny that the heating pads ended up being a whole storyline because we talked about Kris Murray keeping heating pads on his hands.
Yeah.
And so with Jason Benetti filling in for Kevin, he won Michigan Sportscaster of the Year. Yeah, shout out to Nick Krupke, and I did shout him out.
I did see that. Air. Yeah, shout out to Krupke, man.
Yeah,
that guy is
totally.
He's doing it right.
Yeah, and so just to play along with our themes, one of the themes in New Orleans was King Cake Baby. We just ran that into the ground because why not? And then also the heating pad. So I presented him with the heating pad like for Michigan Sportscaster of the Year, and he's like, "Oh, this really works." And I was like, "Okay, I have to take it back now. This has been a whole thing." Like,
I was gonna say, yeah, you can't. Which, by the way, too, I got to say, a little chilly in here, which I would not expect.
Well, because my dad's here.
Your dad's here. That's right.
No, this heater was on right before you got here, so this room was very warm, but it's so loud, I obviously turned it off. But yeah, that's when the heating pad that is currently plugged in on the couch, so I can use it there. And then in my room, I have a heating blanket. So I have places to go in each room to warm up. Right now, though, you're right. It is chilly this is chilly for me.
Yeah. Since you mentioned Kris Murray, one of the things we talked about at practice on Monday is just how many guys, have done a good job of staying ready for the Trailblazers. And, obviously, Blazers have kind of a 8-9 man rotation at this point. But with injuries, we talk about, Rob being out, and then DA was out, and then Jeremy's out. So, that obviously bumps, guys further up the rotation. And they've all done a really good job of like being ready when they're
absolutely
called to an extent where like, I think, you got to really give them credit. So we talked about Kris, in that Detroit game. I felt like he played great in that entire road trip. He was really good against the Heat as well. And again, just a guy who's like just giving you, he's just coming off the bench. A lot of times, I think he knows now he's going to play because Jeremy's out. But, generally when everyone's healthy, or at least when the forwards are all healthy, it's like Kris doesn't know if he's going to get in a game or not. If someone has foul trouble, if they get a knock, he's going to get in. But otherwise, he don't know. Same with Duop.
You don't know.
Yeah, you have Duop who, is always working hard, always practicing.
Always.
Like played a lot last year, hasn't gotten to play as much this year.
Big Daddy is what we call him on the broadcast.
Oh, really? Okay.
And what's funny about that, sorry to interrupt.
Does Duop have kids?
No.
Okay.
Just Big Daddy. Yeah. I was standing outside the locker room in Dallas, and it changes everywhere we go. But the training staff sometimes the health and performance, like physical training. So the guys do weights and stuff like that before games and often after games. It's scheduled, for each player, and so. In Dallas, they're in the hallway. So we're all kind of in this it's a big hallway, but they have their weights and everything set up with our trainers and everything. And so they have music playing, but they're very kind, and they can see I'm going to interview Chauncey. They turn it down, and then I had another hit and turned it down.
That's nice. They don't do that for my radio hits, but I don't mind. I like the ambient noise. They probably don't. Yeah, I try to.
I have a big camera.
Yeah, exactly.
And a mic,
you got a camera at you. I'm like standing there, like huddling behind the door, trying to not be seen. So that's a good point.
And our PR staff is great about hey guys, anyways, everyone's wonderful. But it was funny when they turned it down to get ready for my solo hit after Chauncey. I heard. One of our trainers say to the other one, "Who's up next?" "Oh, Big Daddy." That's what they call him on the broadcast. I was like, "Yes!" Like they say,
"Oh, so it's filtering its way through." Awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome. I've got to tell Kevin that. I haven't told him that yet. So it was so funny. I giggled. I was like, "Oh, we made our way all the way, full circle." Now they don't know if they call him that every time, but they said, "Yeah, that's what they call him on the broadcast." I'm like, "Nice." It's gotten to our training staff.
Duop should have kids.
Oh,
he seems like someone to be a really good dad.
He would be an amazing dad. Yeah. I wonder if he's an uncle. We'll have to ask.
I think he has a lot of siblings, so I would be a little surprised if he wasn't an uncle of some kind. I bet
he's everyone's favorite uncle.
I bet.
Now he has a new nickname, Favorite Uncle.
Yeah. Big Uncle.
Big Uncle.
Big Unk.
That doesn't. Yeah. Well, I've heard that before. Not about him, but Big Unk. That's funny.
In some communities, that's like a term of endearment. So all those guys I've really have been doing a really good job. Even you throw a guy like Jabari into that as well, who again not getting to play as much as he has before, but all those guys they've done a really good job of staying ready. And I think we've talked about this before, that they have games for those guys. Like they'll have practices, and then, you know, every so often they'll have a stay ready game for the guys who aren't necessarily playing a lot. And I think so guys like Kris, guys like Duop, guys like Roops, guys like Jabari, I imagine even a guy like Delano gets into those as well. So then the G League guys as well when they're called up. So, you know, just a chance for those guys to get out there and get some bump and like kind of keep their skills fresh, which again really seems to work. Like they've all come in and did a pretty good job of that. So I think that, you know, it's great for them that they've been able to like carve out a path for themselves and also like stay prepared, you know, even when they're not necessarily getting those opportunities on night to night basis. And, you know, the way that the Blazers season has gone the last couple of years too, it's like you either got injuries or, you know, you're maybe prioritizing development more towards the end of the season. And so those guys get an opportunity to come in and they're ready to go, which, you know, I think is great. And, you know, I even think a guy like Donovan, you know, that rubs off on him too, I think, because, you know, he's working out with those guys a lot. And so it's like, you know, this is how, even when you're not in the rotation, and Donovan you are, but like if at some point you're not, or if you're having injuries, or like you're maybe, you know, not playing as well as you'd like, and so, you know, maybe someone else is getting those minutes, like this is how you stay prepared for what's next. And I think that, you know, that's obviously you got to give a lot of credit to the players for that, but I also think the coaching staff as well.
Absolutely.
Like those guys, to really keep those guys like prepared and ready to go, you know, when you're not necessarily going to like see the results of that on a night to night basis. Cause again, sometimes these guys aren't even going to get to play. So it's a good part of that development process for this team that like, yeah, maybe you're not playing as much as you would like, maybe, but you're going to have opportunities at some point in time to play. Make sure you're ready for when those opportunities come.
And they take the first bus normally for the most part, first bus to games so they can get even more reps and get out on the floor early. And so there's just more to add to your staying ready, all the different things that they do. And as we now know, Kris Murray with the heating pad. That's right. Keep his hands warm. And those things, here, fun fact I didn't know. Cause why would I? I've never held one of their heating pads before. They are wet.
They're wet. So yeah, it's like they're in a steamer.
They're in basically a steamer, like a metal, a silver metal.
Yeah,
box.
It's like this like metal. It almost looks like like an old like round coffee maker, you know, like percolator style. They're square, but they kind of look like that. And you know, and yeah, it's steam to keep them hot. So it is a little bit different. Have you ever smelled them afterwards?
No, and
they're god awful.
No.
Like it's that like gross like fish sweat smell. It is unpleasant. It's like a very specific smell too. So like I can always tell.
These guys are out there sweating. I get it.
Right? And then you know they're sweating. Then they're putting something hot like on your back, and then you're going to sweat more. And it's already that like steam heat, anyways. I mean, it's kind of similar to the smell of a hockey locker.
I was just going to say that.
Which, yeah, if you've ever been in a hockey locker room, that stank. Like, it is...
It's a special kind of stink.
It is grotesque. It's mildew and water and warmth and sweat and steam. It's not... It's not especially pleasant.
Well, yes. And thank goodness, I think that they gave me, because there's numerous, I think they gave me one that maybe hadn't been used yet.
I imagine they probably gave you a clean one, yes.
But it was funny because I always see them put, those Gatorade towels over it. And it never crossed my mind to think, why are they in a towel? I just am used to seeing it. And then as I was walking with it towards Jason, I was like, oh, because they're wet. Oh, okay. And then it makes sense. They're steaming. And so whatever they're made of, it makes sense it makes sense. I just hadn't thought about it before until I was carrying it to him. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is wet. That's something I did not know. But anyway, they help you stay ready.
I think those probably will be phased out in the next couple of years though, because have you seen so now they have heating pads, like guys wear them on their knees sometimes that have like digital, and so like I think that's probably we'll start phasing out the old school like get the tongs and pull this thing out of the steamer tray and put it on your back, and now that's because it allows them to control it and everything now is like, ooh, if there's some
smart
technological aspect to it, let's do that instead. So,
by the way, we have got to give a shout out to, and I didn't watch SportsCenter to see if we made the top 10, but that fast break play.
I even pulled it up here because I was like, can we talk about this?
That
somehow?
was amazing.
Like, I don't know exactly like what my analysis or prompt on this is, but yeah, that's a great play.
It was fantastic, and it's funny. It happened. This happens to me more than I'd like. It happened when I was on my way to the set. Like, so I was literally on the concourse walking, and you just, you hear everyone go, whoa. And I'm like, no. So I sprint over the set, and we obviously have the game on up there. And so I was like, what happened? They're like, oh, this, and my guys up that work on the set, they're like, this was, it was incredible. Absolutely incredible. I was like, well, what happened? They're like, it's hard to explain. You're just going to have to wait. So like, it took forever to get a replay for some reason. No dogging on our broadcast, but there's a lot of play in between that when it finally was a dead ball to show it. And so I saw it as a replay, and I was like, that was incredible. That's one of my favorite plays of the year. That was so great.
Oh, absolutely. So yeah, the play, if you didn't see it, and I guess we should explain it more, it was obviously versus the Heat. I think Deni, it's either a rebound or a steal. I think it might have been a steal.
I think it was a steal.
He throws a long pass to Toumani, who's like crossing across the court. So Toumani gets it. Does he take a dribble? I don't think he does.
I don't think he does.
Actually, okay, so Deni to Toumani. Toumani lofts it up to Shaedon. Kind of, and at that point you think Shaedon's probably gonna try to dunk it, but Shaedon, smartly realizes he's probably a little too far away from the basket, maybe a little out of position because there was a defender that was tracking him. Mm-hmm. So he throws a pass in the air behind his back to Donovan Clingan, who is there ready to catch and finish, and goes up and is able to get the dunk. Which was and I would say probably. Definitely top 5 play for this team, and probably my top 1 play because we have generally not been a very good fast break team. And there was even another point in that game where there was a fast break, and I was just like, guys, come on. Get the ball up. Like, we are throwing more lobs these days. Like, it's definitely something that they've talked about, and they're doing a good job of it. But like, I think sometimes on the fast break, it's still kind of disjointed. But that one was like, no, that's exactly how it's supposed to be done. It was
beautiful.
4 guys on the court touch the ball before it finished. Like, you get the ball to your big, who is going to be able to finish at the rim. So it really that was a fun play, and definitely one of their best. And I think that was that beginning of the third quarter when they made their run. I think they went on a sustained run, and that's something that they've been doing, I feel like, a lot more recently, and then recently being like the last 4 or 5 games, where they will have stretches where it's like they're really like getting stops and getting buckets. And usually, like, if there's like a period of inactivity in terms of scoring, for the Blazers, I feel like usually kind of both teams struggling. Lately, it's like, no, they've been doing some things where, like, their defense is having an effect, but even if it's just the other team missing shots, like, they're actually taking advantage in some of those situations where, again, before, like, I kind of feel like that wasn't the case. And now I remember what it was. So in the third quarter, they did kind of make a run, looked like they were going to get back into the game, and then, kind of what we talked about before, the Heat would score like 8 points. And it just felt to me that it was like, in that third quarter, it's like that was their chance to win that game versus the Heat, and they weren't able to get over the top on that one. So, but that play was obviously great. And again, like, those are the kind of things where you show that in film and you're like, hey guys, when we share the ball, like, when we get out in transition, good things happen.
Yeah.
And so, like, if you see someone get a steal and throw the ball up the court, even if you're kind of behind the play, go.
Yeah, go.
Like, get up there. Like, because you don't know how this is going to play out. So that, like, quick offense or defense to offense kind of thing is always something I feel like for young teams you got to kind of learn. And, I think that play is kind of illustrative of that.
Yeah, that was great. I loved it. It was awesome.
It was awesome. Yeah, no, and again, there we go. Now we talked about it. I even had on my notes, I was like, play?
Play?
What do we do
Good play?
So, yeah. We are going to wrap up a little bit early on this edition of the Blazers Balcony presented by Spirit Mountain Casino because Brooke does have an event to get to. But real quick, started the homestand with the loss to the Heat. Nets on Tuesday, Clippers on Thursday. Saturday, Sunday, back-to-back versus the Rockets and Bulls before heading out to play those 3 games on the road in Florida and North Carolina. So some interesting games. Obviously, Brooklyn is a team that, is about where the Blazers are at in terms of their record. So that's one that I think if you're Portland with a couple days off, like, You really feel like, hey, we're at home. Like we should get this one. So I think that should be an interesting game. Clippers, you've played some good games against this year. Shout out to the folks in Los Angeles, all trying to get through that terrible mess down there. And then a weekend back-to-back, which I hate, but I think fans like. So way to go, fans. I hope you guys show up on Saturday and Sunday. The weekend back-to-back leading into a road trip, too, is like
I get that.
I mean, it's only a 3-game trip, so, that's a little bit better. But I do feel like we've had a lot of, like, back-to-backs leading into long road trips this year, and that is, like,
It hinders your packing.
If I could get in front of the people that make the NBA schedule, I'd be like, don't do this. Do not do this. There'd be a few other things I'd mention as well, like, hey, the Phoenix-Portland back-to-back, that's too long. It's too much of a flight. Get that out of here. But surprisingly enough, they don't ask for my opinion on that stuff.
Shocking.
Yeah, shocking indeed. So that's going to do it on this edition of the Blazers Balcony. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, we'll be back next week, probably from Florida somewhere, but that's all the analysis I'm going to do. I'll maybe try to fit it in between some pickleball games. And I actually did swim in the ocean the last time we were in Miami, which is the first time I've ever been in the Atlantic. Well, except for maybe the European side of the Atlantic. I think I did that once, at least the Mediterranean. But either way. Head out to Moda Center, catch one of these upcoming 4 games. I think Thursday night as well, the Shaedon Sharp commemorative glass
and
night.
It's really good.
It's a very good glass, so you're definitely going to want to be there for that one. And Houston's always an interesting game. They're kind of an upcoming team. You can yell at Dylan Brooks. Everyone loves to do that. And Chicago, another team that, is kind of where the Blazers are at. So, again, some chance to get some wins. So
let's do it.
We'll talk to you next time. Thanks so much for joining us.
Peace out.